speak. So if you'd like to just come up to the podium and just state your name and your address, and we'll go from there.
Been a Tazewell County Board meeting. As circumstances have it, I find myself before you with some questions regarding Board Member Jay Hall's recent public comments where he referred to a 16-year-old child diagnosed with Asperger's disease as, quote, looking like she has mongoloidism, Down syndrome. Now, I see that Mr. Hall is absent tonight. Some people might call that cowardice. Some people might call that convenient. I don't know what to call it other than I wish he was here to hear the public's sentiments, seeing the other comments on the post that he was referring to. And this is all in reference to a child speaking out about climate change. And I'm not here tonight to debate climate change. There's no debate. It's not a theory. We have a consensus by our scientific community. And Mr. Hall seems to be conflating a number of issues. Other comments he made in the same regard were, if she does have Down syndrome, they're taking advantage of a young woman. And he further said, he also accused the left of using a young woman to create propaganda and manipulate people. And I would like to ask Mr. Hall, if he was here, in what way, and what has led you to believe this? Who is the they that is taking advantage of this woman, and for what purpose? I have trouble understanding where he's coming from, and I wish he was here so that we could talk about this. I would like to take a brief minute to thank David Zimmerman. David spoke to me on the phone earlier this afternoon and invited me to come speak tonight. David Zimmerman is a reasonable man. I was born and raised a Republican here in Pekin. And regardless of what side of the political spectrum you fall on, there are certain subjects that I think everyone is in agreement with, but we maybe have different ideas of how to solve that problem. And I'm sure David and I would not see eye to eye on everything, but the key word there is reasonable. Presented with facts and evidence and data, one can lead to a logical conclusion of what a situation may be. And I'd like to thank, without him being here, I don't really have much else to say, but thank you for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else would like to address the board? Okay, can you come forward? Thank you. If you could just state your name and where you live, and then let's just speak. Okay.
Hi, thank you guys for having me. My name is Kaylin Wright. I live on 3rd Street in Pekin. I have several questions that I've written out tonight for Jay himself. Unfortunately, he was too cowardice to be here. So, at this point, I would like to state those questions. How old are you? In that many years of your life, have you not learned how to show respect for people? Do you have children? How would you feel if someone spoke about your loved ones that way? Excuse me. You're the president of ANBUCS, which means that organization helps special needs children. And in that capacity, what are you saying?
Again, if you could just state your name and where you live, and then go ahead.
My name is Crystal Dickerson, and I am actually from McLean County, but my children go to school here in Tazewell County. I am the mother of 3 children, including 1 child who has autism. I'd like to address the Tazewell County Board and Tazewell County residents this evening with some thoughts I have about the recent disappointing and hurtful comments made by board member Jay Hall on Facebook in regards to 16-year-old environmental activist Greta Thunberg, as well as comments Mr. Hall made to Heart of Illinois News reporters in response to the situation. The Facebook comment was in response to a Mail.com article whose headline read, "Fox apologizes for disgraceful comment about Thunberg." To which Mr. Hall responded with his own disgraceful comment that she looks like she has mongoloidism or Down syndrome. Mr. Hall made this comment this week, not decades before he became an elected official. It wasn't even years ago. It was in this last week and since becoming the president of Pekin's Ambucks chapter, a nonprofit that specifically helps people with disabilities. In regards to what Mr. Hall said about Greta, who does not have Down syndrome, I think her words speak best for themselves, and I would repeat them here. When haters go after your looks and differences, it means that they have nowhere left to go, and then you know you're winning. I have Asperger's, and that means I'm sometimes a bit different from the norms, and given the right circumstances, being different is a superpower. The amazing, strong, brave, courageous, and intelligent young woman, Greta Thunberg, doesn't need me or anyone else in this room to defend her. However, we do need to talk about the comments that Mr. Hall made regarding her appearance, because the recent Facebook post was just the tip of the iceberg. A more vital concern I have with Mr. Hall, and what I hope Tazewell County residents will also question, is how Mr. Hall actually feels about people with disabilities and our youth with disabilities in particular. Because these feelings are what will determine how Mr. Hall votes and interacts with the entire community in Tazewell County. In a phone interview with Heart of Illinois News, Mr. Hall defended the comments he made in questioning Greta's appearance and health by saying if she does have Down syndrome, they're taking advantage of a young woman. He also accused the left of using a young woman to create propaganda and manipulate people, while also saying she might not have the capacity to understand. Most 16-year-olds don't, let alone if they have some issues. I'm not going to address the way Mr. Hall deflected the issue using divisive, untrue political attacks on the left to try to justify his own bad behavior while claiming that they're using and manipulating a child with a disability to propagate an agenda. I'm also not going to address how Mr. Hall repeated that he believes the teenage activist has Down syndrome when a simple Google search should have provided Mr. Hall with the information that this Nobel Peace Prize nominated teenage activist on the autism spectrum does indeed not have Down syndrome. Although these are issues I believe that the people of Tazewell County should consider in regard to Mr. Hall as their elected official, as it speaks to his willingness to seek out and spread factual information. What the Tazewell County Board and residents of Tazewell County also need to consider and question is whether or not Mr. Hall believes the voices of our youth and the voices of people with disabilities matter. When he claimed that Greta might not have the capacity to understand, most 16-year-olds don't, let alone if they have some issues, he is questioning not only the intelligence of teenagers and their capacity for understanding and learning, but also insinuating that people with some issues surely are not capable of understanding complex ideas. This type of thinking creates a dangerous mentality that our youth and those in our community who have disabilities are somehow less than others, which in turn means that their voices, opinions, and rights matter less than others in our community. Our youth and people with disabilities deserve a voice, they deserve to be heard, and they deserve a platform free of judgment from the very people who claim to represent them in elected capacity. That simple Google search that Mr. Hall could have done before ever deciding to comment about Greta Thunberg also would have yielded a post that Greta herself made back in February, because unfortunately Mr. Hall's comments are not the first time Greta has had to fight back against people who question who she is and who is really pulling the strings. The post she made is rather long, and everyone who is listening tonight can find her post from February 2nd on her public Facebook page, but I would like to comment an excerpt from it tonight. Some people mock me for my diagnosis, that Asperger's is not a disease, it is a gift. People also say that since I had Asperger's, I couldn't possibly have put myself in this position, but that's exactly why I did this. Because if I would have been normal and social, I would have organized myself in an organization or started an organization by myself. But since I'm not good at socializing, I did this instead. I was so frustrated that nothing was being done about the climate crisis, and I felt like I had to do something, anything. And sometimes not doing things, like just sitting down outside the parliament, speaks much louder than doing things. Just like a whisper sometimes is louder than shouting. Greta is a fine example of how even young people and people with disabilities can rise above their issues, as Mr. Hall called them, and not only be active members of our local communities, but our global community as well. Greta is a fine example to everyone involved, is the person who can not only represent them accurately, but also represent some of the most vulnerable citizens of their district. The young people who aren't old enough yet to get to the polls, and disabled people who depend on our elected officials to have their best interest at heart when they can't always speak or stand up for themselves. I hope each of Mr. Hall's constituents press him for a sincere apology not only to Greta, but to the people with disabilities everywhere, and that Mr. Hall can reflect upon his ignorance and take some time to learn from Greta after he respectfully resigns from his office. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Crystal. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Sure, yeah.
Please. Yeah, if you could just state your name and where you live.
My name is Charlie. I live in the 61554 zip code. Although right now my wife is at home looking on Zillow for other places for us to go. This is really unfortunate. My daughter participates in the Penguin Project. You know what that is? Okay. So what the Penguin Project is, it's a program designed to facilitate handicapped children getting together, and they perform a play once a year. And the community there is beautiful. It's a number, a range of different disabilities. And the best part about Penguin Project is it takes these people seriously. Unfortunately, Mr. Hall is unable to do that. He doesn't recognize people with Down syndrome as having the ability for proper self-expression, for self-determination, for having legitimate opinions, thoughts, beliefs. And since he can't appreciate that these are people too, they're not animals, they're people, he needs to go. So we're expecting a remedy. And I would really appreciate it to deliver.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I want to thank the four of you that spoke this evening. Any communications from elected or appointed county officials? Hey, Joe, I'm sorry, one second. After Joe's comments, you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but we won't be addressing any of these issues this evening. There's proper posting that has to happen for us to take any kind of action, and our authority is somewhat limited in this area, so you're more than welcome to stay for the whole meeting. They're not always that exciting. Again, you're more than welcome to stay. So, Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After listening to everybody, I actually received quite a few phone calls today, yesterday, regarding this issue. And I was floored. I mean, I really was. So I guess what I'm asking is the support of you as our chairman and the rest of the board in requesting a formal apology be made. Not from this board, but from Member Hall. I think that there are so many ways that he could have already done this, that it takes being here to do it. But more on a personal note, I would rather request his resignation for this.
All right, thank you, Joe. Any other comments? Brandon?
I'll second Member Wolf's comment on the personal note. This was an appalling statement. As public servants, we need to give our constituents unconditional, positive regard. And this comment, and regardless of the context it was made, it has grievous ramifications. My day job, I'm an educator, and I work with children of multiple abilities. And when I read a comment like that, I can't help but see their faces and think, they get enough bullying at school. What's it going to be like when they're seeing the real world? And when it comes to representation, we're seeing also some integrity issues. The reports made from him to the HOI reporters, the Journal Star reporters, I do not believe he felt guilty for what he did. I believe he felt guilty for being caught. screenshots were made. Those comments are set in stone. They are matters of public record. Again, I believe a request for a formal letter of resignation is warranted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Brandon. Any other comments from electeds or county officials? Okay, then comment section is closed. We're going to move on to the rest of the meeting. If I could get a motion to approve the minutes from August 28th. Motion by Mitten, second by Sundell. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. We do have 3 in-place meetings this evening. The first one is property. Chairman Harris.
Yes, sir. Sue, would you call roll, please?
Harris.
Here.
Josephine. Here. Darcy. Here. Rapp.
Here.
Hauser.
Here.
Shortino. Wolf.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve the replacement of a convincing unit in the jail. Motion by Megan, second by Joe. We have not picked, if you see the document on the second page. We have not picked the low bid, and Mike isn't here to give us why, and I think Wendy can do it.
Sorry, Mike he had already had a scheduled vacation for today, so he did send me some information and some reasoning that I want to share with all of you. The equipment being proposed by the low bidder, it was an Allied AC unit, which is a product of the Lennox brand. The other bidders proposed installing a carrier unit, which is the preferred unit. And although both brands will function, they both have the eventual for potential breakdowns in the future. Mike's biggest concern is that there are some disadvantages with using the Allied AC unit. So what he kind of went through and explained is that Lennox makes various units and Carrier makes various units, he doesn't want to say that either is bad or good, but what his issue comes down to is trying, if and when, because we always have breakdowns in the future, trying to get the part for an Allied will be much more of an issue. And so he said what his concern is these things never break down in the middle of the winter or on a cool day. It's your 95-degree day. And when it's scorching outside, it can be very difficult. So what his concern is that the ability to get the piece of equipment here. He said either overnighting it or delayed time frame on an Allied. Whereas a Carrier, they keep a fluid logistic chain, especially in this area. There are common components, they're industry compatible, meaning you can plug them into other brands since they all use the same components. So his concern whenever he got the bids was that the Carrier, that he was bid an Allied, and he's concerned about getting those parts. So that's what I know about it, and he apologizes that he wasn't here.
Thank you. I'll open this to the full board. Are there any comments or questions like to be presented?
So I don't know anything about HVAC, but I know Mike is notoriously tight, and if he's recommending a higher bid, it must be the right thing to do. So,
any comments? Joe?
Being in that industry, I agree with Mike. Carrier is very reputable, but also in our area, I know of at least 3 local distributors that parts would be readily available. And really in the industry, I believe that they are in the top of the line as far as being dependable and withstand a little bit of abuse. So I definitely agree with Mike's decision.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. P1920, I'm going to pull from the agenda. The reason is we have come up with some ideas on how to split the cost with the organizations involved. There is a situation in one of the organizations that would like to delay it to 2021. We also have some questions on the roles of each of Tazewell County Maintenance Department and the maintenance departments out there, who does what. So we have to get all those resolved. Until we do, I'd like to pull this and come back with an agreed upon resolution. So we're in recess.
Thank you, Mike. In place finance meeting, Chairman Newhouser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sue, would you call the roll, please?
Chairman Newhouser.
Here.
Graff.
Here.
Atkins.
Here.
Sonnet. Here. Darcy. Here. Harris.
Here.
Innick.
Here.
Reynolds. Minton. Here. Frail. Here. Shortino. We have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on the agenda tonight is to recommend to approve an agreement to purchase the ZenWorks Suite software and licensing. I get a motion to get that on Graff, second by Atkins. This information is provided to you tonight is part of our FY 2020 budget. Our IT director, Scott Heisey, recommended to purchase this software for our cybersecurity needs and his ability to be able to load softwares and monitor software packages on all of our computer hardware throughout the county. And throughout those discussions, County Clerk Ackerman made us aware of the fact that there was a cybersecurity grant through the state of Illinois that we may be able to use some of that money toward the purchase of this software suite. So what we are recommending tonight is, rather than have it as part of our budgeted expense for FY 2020, is that we do use some of the grant money that has been allocated to purchase this product now, and then we would budget for maintenance type cost in our budget. But we thought that it was a good use of the grant money. Thank County Clerk Ackerman for making us aware of the availability of that money, and would like to bring this for approval tonight. So are there any questions on that? Yeah, Tony?
How much was the grant money? I'm sorry.
When did you have that?
I know it's about $42,000, which covers the entire software purchase.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then just one real quick information item. Tonight, I think Craig Peters placed at your desk green budget book, which is the tentative budget book, along with two sheets. One is the illustration of the operating budget deficit that we are currently proposing for FY 2020, as well as a exception sheet showing the changes that were made at our first two budget meetings. So this is just for your information. If anybody has any questions, please let Wendy or I know. And you're all invited to the tentative budget meeting, which is October 7th. So I wanted to make you aware of that. Thank you.
What's the time for the October 7th meeting?
6 p.m.
I would encourage every member to come to that. There's per diem. So, okay. One more in-place meeting. We have an in-place executive. Sue, if you could call the roll.
Chairman Zimmerman.
Here.
Newhouser.
Here.
Sonnet. Here. Darcy. Here. Graff.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Innick.
Here.
Josie. Reynolds. Frail. Here. Sin.
Here.
Sundell. Here. You have a quorum.
Awesome. Okay, could I get a motion to get E-121, the Deer Creek TIF? Motion by Darcy, second by Graff. This is something routine. We do this each year. Any questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Item B, the 19-122, can I get a motion to get this on the floor? Motion by Sin, second by Harris. This is the annual levy and assessment. Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? I'm going to come back to item C. Can I get a motion for appointments A through D? Motion by Emmy, second by Jostain. Any questions? All those in favor? Yeah, Nancy.
I will abstain from that.
Item C.
I'm abstaining, yes.
Okay. So noted. Anything else? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Appointments passed. And then to item C, 19-123. Can I get a motion to get this? Motion by Newhouser, second by Sundell. And I'm sorry I didn't get this to you earlier. What this is the reason we're doing it by the end of this month. If East Peoria, for instance, because they have a medical cannabis dealership now, they're more likely to get recreational cannabis as of January 1st. If we don't pass this ordinance tonight, we'll miss out on any tax revenue until we can get this ordinance passed. There's a 3-month lag with the Department of Revenue. Are there any questions on this? Mindy?
Okay. I see, like on the back side of the second page of the paper, the proposed paper. Right at the top, it says 3.75 for unincorporated areas in Tazewell County, and then 3.0% for the municipalities located in Tazewell County. I'm just curious why the difference. I mean, I'm sure there's. I just don't really know what the difference is there, and what is the maximum amount we are by law allowed to raise that to.
So these are both the maximum. If we, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we had a recreational facility in unincorporated Tazewell County, we could charge that 3.75. So if you actually have a facility that sells, you can do 3.75. We get 3% on any facility in one of the municipalities, and it's the maximum by law. So, because we have to clean up the collateral damage. So they included us in the legislation to help pay for some of the damage. I don't know if I revealed my political bias there. So, Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few comments. Deja vu, here we are again dealing with a state law that the state passes and then really didn't think very well on the rollout. But it is what it is, and we have to decide this one way or the other, and that's the way it's going to be. But I just caution everybody, there have been a lot of, in my opinion, pretty high revenue figures that have been thrown around as to what potentially, from a tax revenue perspective, we could receive if one of these local dispensaries are licensed. And I've heard anywhere from between $200,000 and $500,000 of tax revenue that would come to Tazewell County at that 3% rate. Well, I'm not a higher math student, but if you do that math problem backwards, that means that store needs to generate about $7 million worth of gross sales. And that's just not going to happen. I called my good friend Patrick Urick, the city manager for Peoria today, and they decided on this last night. And he said the revenue figure that they were using conservatively, if they were to get it, was around $80,000 to on the high side $100,000, which means still a store would need to be doing about $3 million worth of sales annually. So I just want to caution everybody that as we look toward this to be a potential revenue source, I just hearken you back to the video gambling legislation that was forced upon us a number of years ago, and all of the inflated figures of how it was going to be a huge revenue stream. That just didn't happen. We do get revenue every year, thankfully. We do get something, but it pales in comparison to what the state of Illinois gets with regards to that. And then the other thing I would just like to make in the way of a comment, and I hope this is the case, if you read this ordinance or read this resolution, nowhere in it does it say that we are in approval of recreational marijuana sales in the unincorporated areas of Tazewell County. So I just want that to be clear. If we pass this tonight, in no way, shape, or form are we approving the sale of those items in Tazewell County. This is not a tacit approval. All we're doing is positioning ourselves to maybe receive tax revenue if one of these licensures do land in our county. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Did you get all your questions answered? I'm sorry.
No. Okay, so the tax structure for that, like the sales tax, I suppose this is going to be rolled in with the sales tax. So they have, can somebody tell me the total amount of tax that will be paid and how it will be divvied out, like 3% to like a town and 3% to the county. Did you see what I'm saying?
So the regular sales tax applies, the 6 1/4, and for East Peoria, for instance, their tax rate is 9 1/4, 9 1/2.
Something like that, it's higher.
So you have that, and then for East Peoria, for instance, if they had a facility, there would be their 9 1/4 or 9 1/2 plus the 3.75. And okay. So that's that. Any other questions? And I'll open it up to everybody. Yeah, Nick?
What are the ramifications if we don't pass this tonight?
I mean, the only ramifications is that we would forego some possible tax revenue.
So we would forego the tax revenue, but we wouldn't, failing to pass this tonight, wouldn't stop recreational sales of cannabis in Tazewell County.
Not at all.
Thank you.
Okay, any other? And I was at a county conference this week, and it was the Southern Illinois County, Williamson County. They passed this tax, and their thing is that you could go into neighboring Franklin County and then come back into Williamson County and smoke it legally. And so why not tax it at the site in order to collect those revenues? So, any other questions? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, we are done with the executive committee. That brings us down to the consent agenda. So let's see, item 6 will automatically be pulled. 7 is off the agenda. Item 9, 13, 14, 15, and the appointments. Anything else? Mike?
Number 3.
Number 3. Nancy?
Did you say 10, 11, and 12?
I didn't, but 10, 11, and 12. Anything else? So that leaves about 3 on our consent agenda. So, Russ?
I make a motion to approve the other 3.
Motion by Crawford, second by Graff on the remainder. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Down to the appointments, A through D. Can I get a motion? Motion by Conant, second by Jostings, and Nancy, you'll abstain from item. Any questions on the appointments? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, back to our agenda. Item 3, P19, 18. Can I get a motion to get this on the floor? Motion by Harris, second by Darcy. Mike, you pulled this?
Yes, I did. I'm not opposing the structural changes or any of the changes in the clerk's office. I have a concern. The state came out to all the counties and asked them to join a program where all the counties were attached to a program and they could communicate to each other if there's a problem. If there's some website was interfered with, other counties would learn about it. It's a program they want to develop and they want to get going, and then they hope the state will join in. In this program, they asked each county to sign up, and they offered a grant for cybersecurity. The grant was a little over $29,000 originally. So proposals started being developed for this rearrangement of the office. And we went 3, 4, 5 different versions, and the dollar figures it went up to 60 and down into the low 20s, and now it's around 36,000. Mike Shoney put a lot of time into this, trying to develop these alternatives and find the costs and everything. I question, this is cybersecurity, and to rearrange the countertops, to me, in my opinion, it's hardly touching cybersecurity. It may keep somebody away from a computer or something, but we had countertops before. So what I'm opposing is the $5,000 donation by the general fund. We have other building projects that we need money on. The clerk's office can pay for this whole project. We put a lot of time into it. I don't see any cybersecurity on it, and I'm going to oppose the $5,000 section of it. Thank you.
So Mike, Holly, are you making that in the form of an amendment, or I'm not sure how that would work, to take out the 5 that the county was going to participate in?
Yeah, I mean, in whatever expression of the amendment you would like to make, as long as it's clear on the record what is intended, it can be as easy as amended to not include the funds from the general fund. Yeah.
All right, I will make an amendment that this project will not receive any dollars from the general fund. Will that be clear enough, or is that?
The county portion?
Yes.
Okay. You're making that a motion. Is there a second? Second by Minton. Any discussion on the amendment? Nick?
I have a point of order, Mr. Chairman. The way the resolution is written now, it has, the funding numbers don't add up. The total project is $36,000 with a grant of $22,000 and the fund balance of $14,000 plus $5,000. That comes up to $43,000. So the amounts that are listed in the resolution are not correct. So it needs to be amended somehow regardless of how we do it.
I agree. So, I can include that in an amendment that I'm making, that the total cost is $36,000. The $5,000 in the original was to reduce the $14,000 to be paid by the clerk's office.
Okay, so if you're amending it, Nick's right. Just as it looks right now, we've added 5,000 additional. If the 5,000 is removed, then that 14,000 would stay as that is, right? But if you decide not to remove the 5,000, then it needs to become $9,257.62 from the county clerk fee fund, with the other 5,000 being from the county capital project fund.
So the original amendment, if it fails, then we need to make another amendment. No, if it fails, it's okay. No.
No, if it fails, it's not okay, you need to correct it. If
The 9,000.
it passes, then
It'll be correct.
I mean, that part is removed, and so those numbers would add up.
All right, so the original amendment stands.
And isn't what Mike's saying, that it's just not gonna be our money, so it doesn't, he didn't attach a dollar amount from what you said from the amendment, did you? You just said it wouldn't take any of our.
It'll be the $5,000 from the county general fund.
Okay, but when you finally made the resolution, they didn't think you put a dollar amount. Was there a dollar amount?
I can add if it needs it.
Okay, I was just gonna say, if we
$5,000,
had no dollar amount, just said it wasn't gonna come funds from us, then it would be whatever funds were in there. What is on that resolution? See what I'm saying?
The amendment is that we do not pay any funds out of the general fund, and that amount would be $5,000.
Okay. Russ, you have a comment? Towards the amendment?
Yeah. So, I'm a little confused, but I'm not on property, so I guess I have an excuse. What is the alternative funding for the 5,000?
I believe John's fee funds.
Yes, what we were doing was asking the county board to participate in this project financially. If the county doesn't, we have the funds in the fee fund to cover it. However, that fee fund is our lowest one. It's not one that is in the best condition as far as longevity. So that's why we were asking for some participation from the county board for this project.
Well, when you say, may I continue? So when you say you're asking for participation of the county board, I'm focused in on finances. So the 5,000. When we say the general, the county clerk's office, the departmental budget is totally within the county general fund, Fund 100. He does have the special fee fund. And I think what Mike's trying to say is, instead of having it split between the county clerk's department, or 913, maybe it's in 913, the county general. maybe it's in 913, the general county department, I'm not sure. Either that or, they're both in the county general fund, 100. And so if you're Mary Burris and you're the treasurer, you know, all you've got is different, you know, 40 different funds, and one of those funds is the county general fund. It doesn't make any difference whether it's county board or 913 or the county clerk's office, they're all in the same fund. Now, what's not in the same fund is the special fee fund that John manages. So is all this just you're trying to take that $5,000 in addition to the rest of the money out of that fee fund?
That's what it would do. So it would say that the general fund doesn't contribute to this project at all. Now, if John had found something in his budget and wanted to contribute, like, I understand we don't have any control over that. This is asking for Mike Shoney's capital project fund budget to give $5,000. So, but the other
That's in public administration.
it's under the building
118 or
administration.
something like that.
181.
Yeah, 181.
You're right.
I can't remember
You're
exactly.
pretty close.
It's been a long time. Okay, I'll just finish by saying, now that I have all that data, you know, John did bust his hump to try to come up with grant money to assist us. So it's not even any funds in Tazewell County, and that's a good thing. And so I didn't have a problem with $5,000 out of the county general fund, since most of it is being paid by the state. So I don't see how it's that urgent. I mean, I've seen us throw away $5,000 in about 2 seconds for a lot less reason. On the other hand, I've been one of the strongest proponents of saving every penny in the county general fund for many, many years. So I can see it both ways. Thanks.
Yes. May I comment on one of his comments?
Sure.
The state came and offered that for us to sign up for programming. It came to us. There was no buck busting. It came to us.
So, Nick, did you have your hand up? And then,
Yes, I did, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This came out of property committee at a 3-2 vote or a tie. Don't really remember. There was some disagreement of property, but essentially what we're talking about, and it came out of property approved that we would, instead of the county clerk spending $14,000 out of his fee fund, which he's willing to do, he's asking for the county, us, to contribute $5,000 out of our general fund for his project, and leaving the $5,000 in his fee fund for future use. I see this as a legitimate use of county maintenance general fund expenditures to fix up his office, and I thought it would make sense to leave that $5,000 in his fee fund for future use. I am not in support of this amendment.
which fee fund is it? IT?
The fee fund is the county clerk's general fund, and it's got a balance roughly right now of about $40,000. The other fee fund I have is the recorder of deeds fee fund, which is much larger, but it can only be used for the recorder of deeds office. It's not, doesn't have the availability for this project.
Okay. Mindy?
So my question kind of goes off of yours. What do you use that fee fund for, that we would be taking the extra money out of, or the $14,000? What do you use that for ongoingly?
We use that for the purchase of materials for the office, death certificates, birth certificates, other various materials. There is an employee, a portion of an employee that comes out of there, a small portion, but a portion. I don't recall off the top of my head what all else comes off of it, but generally just for, its identified use is for expenses of the county clerk's office.
Other questions regarding the amendment? Russ?
Last comment on this. So all those things that John just mentioned, and he didn't even mention them all, they used to be paid for out of the county clerk's budget in the county general fund, and now they're not. They're paid out of the special fee fund. So now where I was sort of on the fence, I'm not on the fence anymore. I agree 100% with Mr. Graff. $5,000 is, we're getting a whole lot more than the $5,000 if we spend $5,000 in the general fund. Thanks. I'm against the motion to amend.
Any questions on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Better do a roll call.
Atkins,
Nay.
Conick,
No.
Crawford,
No.
Darcy,
Yes.
Graff,
No.
Hall, Harris,
Yes.
Holford,
No.
Hovey,
No.
Emig,
Yes.
Josting,
No.
Longfellow,
No.
Minold, Mitten,
Yes.
Newhouser,
No.
Frail,
No.
Rich Simpson,
Yes.
Squartino, Sin,
No.
Sundell, Wolf,
No.
The amendment is defeated. Back to the original motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend.
Yes.
So as the motion is written now, I would make a motion to change the amount that says $14,257.62 to $9,257.62.
Is there a second to that? Second by Atkins. Any questions on that? That just cleans up the resolution. All those in favor of this amendment signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Back to the resolution as amended. Any further questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So noted. Motion passes. Down to, I just came out of property tonight, P 1919, number 6. We get a motion. Get this on the floor. Motion by Sundell, second by Rich Stimson. This just came out of committee tonight. Any questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Out of finance tonight, number 9E-24. Can I get a motion? Motion by Newhouser, second by Wolf. Any questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So we have 3 replacement hires, and they're just automatically pulled. So I get a motion for 19-25, number 10. Motion by Mitten, second by Prail. Luke's back there. Any questions for Luke?
I've got one.
Bill?
I made some comments at Human Resources that I'd like to repeat for the whole board. I've spoken with Luke Taylor about this, and he was aware of this issue, but there wasn't time to do the kind of analysis for this particular replacement hire that I think would be necessary. With regards to assistant public defenders, they are nearly all part-time, but they are paid their salary, and then they are also paid or given benefits such as participating in IMRF. So we don't get the kind of benefit from having part-time employees who are assistant public defenders that you get from the usual part-time employee not paying benefits. I believe that we should move towards having more full-time assistant public defenders, and we need to look into what other costs there may be in bringing on more full-time assistant public defenders. So for tonight, I will support this particular replacement hire because we haven't done a sufficient analysis to know whether we would even have places to put additional full-time public defenders. But as I stated at Human Resources, and I want to state again tonight, I will not support any further replacement hires of assistant public defenders on a part-time basis until there has been an analysis done to show that we definitely are getting a better deal financially by hiring a part-time assistant public defender rather than a full-time assistant public defender. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Item 19-26, motion by Newhouser, second by Emig. Animal control, Ryan's here. Any questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. And then finally, the replacement hire in the clerk's office, HR 19-27, motion by Mitten, second by Darcy. Any questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Down to executive, excuse me. Item E19-121, Deer Creek TIF. Motion by Sundell, second by Conick. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. E 19-122, the Heritage Lake subdivision. Motion by Newhouser, second by Wolf. Any questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. And then finally, the cannabis ordinance, 19-123. Motion by Josting, second by Prano. Any further questions on this one? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Any unfinished business? Any new business? The bills have been sent out, and so as you have an opportunity to take a look at those. We have the calendars from the October and November. Remember, November's kind of condensed. So can I get a motion to approve the calendars? Motion by Mitten, second by Sundell. Any changes? All those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed. And our next meeting is October 30th, unless the Cardinals are in the World Series. Sorry, Big Cub fans, we are recessed. Thank you.